underestimated and ignored. In the vastness of space, three powerful galaxies ruled with iron fists. Their fleets were enormous, their weapons unmatched. They were the Triumvirate Alliance, feared by all. To them, Earth was nothing more than a tiny, primitive world, barely worth noticing. Ambassador Vorkin of the Triumvirate sat in his grand throne room, surrounded by holographic screens showing Earth's outdated technology. He chuckled, his reptilian eyes gleaming with amusement. "Look at them," he mocked. "Their ships are ancient, their weapons weak. They are no threat to us." His advisors laughed along, nodding in agreement. "Helpless," one of them sneered. "They still use metal hulls. How primitive." Another added, "Their ships can barely travel between planets. They are stuck in their own little system." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kara stood in the command center, her sharp eyes focused on the holographic map displaying the approaching enemy fleets. The room was tense. Officers worked silently at their stations, their faces pale with worry. "Admiral," one of her lieutenants spoke, his voice shaky, "our scouts report that the enemy dreadnoughts are moving closer. Their firepower, it's beyond anything we've ever seen." Kara's jaw tightened. She looked at the screen, her gaze fierce and unyielding. "They think we are weak," she said, her voice calm and cold. "They think we are helpless." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. Earth's technology was old, its ships ancient. But they also knew something the enemy did not. Kara turned to her communication officer. "Send the signal," she ordered. "Activate the Ghost Fleet." Gasps echoed through the room. The Ghost Fleet, a legend, a myth. Some believed it was just a story, a tale told to give hope. But Kara knew better. It was real, and it was ready. Buried deep within Earth's moon, hidden away for centuries, the ancient warships began to awaken. Their engines, silent for thousands of years, roared to life, shaking the very ground. These were no ordinary ships. They were dreadnoughts, designed by Earth's ancestors long before the galaxy even knew humanity existed. Massive and terrifying, the Ghost Fleet emerged from the shadows. Their hulls were forged from metals unknown to the galaxy, their weapons ancient but powerful. They were built for one purpose: to protect Earth. Back in the Triumvirate's command ship, Ambassador Vorkin watched Earth's old ships on his screen. He smirked, shaking his head. "Pathetic," he muttered. "They stand no chance." But as he turned to give the order to attack, his screen flickered. A new image appeared. Massive warships rising from the moon's surface, their engines blazing with ancient power. Vorkin's eyes widened in shock. What are those?" he gasped. His advisors were speechless, fear replacing their arrogance. The Ghost Fleet was like nothing they had ever seen. Their sensors couldn't even identify the metal. The power readings were off the charts. Panic spread through the Triumvirate fleet as the Ghost Fleet approached, their colossal forms blocking out the stars. Vorkin's hands trembled. Impossible. They were supposed to be helpless. He shouted. On Earth, Admiral Kara watched the enemy's confusion with cold satisfaction. She knew what they were thinking. They had underestimated humanity, dismissed them as weak and primitive. They had made a grave mistake. "Power up the cannons," she ordered, her voice steady. "Let's show them what these relics can do." The Ghost Fleet's ancient weapons hummed to life, glowing with a strange energy. Beams of light crackled across their hulls, building up power. Kara's eyes never left the screen. "Fire," she commanded. In a blinding flash, the Ghost Fleet unleashed its fury. Energy beams shot through space, faster than light, striking the Triumvirate ships. Shields shattered, hulls exploded, and entire squadrons were reduced to dust. Ambassador Vorkin watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart. His laughter was gone, replaced by fear. "Retreat," he screamed, but it was too late. Kara watched as the enemy ships tried to flee, their arrogance turned to terror. She felt no pity. They had come to conquer, to destroy. They had underestimated Earth, and now they were paying the price. "Let this be a lesson," she said coldly, her voice echoing through the command center. "Never underestimate humanity." The battle was far from over, but Earth had made its message clear. They were not helpless. They were warriors, survivors, and they would not be defeated. Ambassador Vorkin's claws gripped the edge of his command throne as he stared at the battle reports. This couldn't be real. Hundreds of Earth's ancient warships had risen from their moon, moving in perfect formation. The sensors couldn't read their energy signatures properly. The hulls of these ships were made from something beyond their understanding, something the Triumvirate had never encountered before. A nervous officer approached Vorkin. "Sir, our forward fleet is being annihilated." Vorkin bared his sharp teeth in frustration. "They are just old ships. Why are they cutting through our forces like this?" The officer swallowed hard. "Their weapons, they don't match any known technology. And their armor, our plasma cannons barely scratch them." Vorkin's eyes flicked to the massive dreadnoughts now moving through space like ghosts of war. No one in the Triumvirate had ever imagined Earth possessed such ships. "Order all dreadnoughts to fire at full power," Vorkin growled. "Destroy those relics before they reach us." Across the battlefield, the Triumvirate's powerful warships adjusted their formation. Their cannons charged, glowing with deadly energy. Then, in perfect synchronization, they unleashed their full firepower upon the Ghost Fleet. Blazing plasma bolts and energy beams shot across the void, striking the ancient human ships. But something terrifying happened. The Ghost Fleet didn't flinch. Instead of shattering under the barrage, the Dreadnought's strange hulls absorbed the energy, their surfaces shimmering with an eerie glow. It was as if the ancient warships devoured the attack. The Triumvirate commanders watching from their ships felt their blood run cold. Back in Earth's war room, Admiral Kara smirked as she saw the enemy's panic. She turned to her weapons officer. "Status on our counterattack." "All systems ready, Admiral," the officer confirmed. "The Ghost Fleet is fully powered." Kara took a deep breath. "Then let's teach them what these relics can do." She raised her hand and gave the command. "Fire." The Ghost Fleet responded instantly. From the ancient warships, beams of pure devastation erupted. They were unlike any weapons ever seen before. Strange, pulsing energy that moved faster than light, bypassing shields as if they weren't even there. The first Triumvirate dreadnought that was hit didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment, it was there. The next, it was gone, erased from reality. On the enemy command bridge, Vorkin's mouth fell open. "Impossible," he whispered. Before he could react, the Ghost Fleet fired again. Another enemy warship vanished, then another. The Triumvirate fleet was being wiped from existence as the humans' forgotten weapons tore through space. Earth's warships continued their advance, undeterred, relentless. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And for the first time in history, the mighty Triumvirate alliance felt fear. Vorkin turned to his officers, his voice shaking. "Order a full retreat." But deep down, he knew it was already too late. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. And now, the galaxy was learning the truth. Chaos erupted across the Triumvirate command center. Alarms blared, officers shouted orders, and screens flashed with red alerts. The impossible was happening. The fleet that was supposed to crush Earth was being erased from existence. Ambassador Vorkin's claws dug into his command throne. How are they doing this?" he demanded, his voice trembling with rage and fear. A trembling communications officer spoke up. "Sir, their weapons, they're not just powerful, they're bypassing our shields entirely." Vorkin's eyes widened. That's against the laws of physics." "Apparently, not for the humans," the officer replied, his voice hollow. Vorkin slammed his fist on his chair. "Fools. They were supposed to be primitive. How could we have been so blind?" Across the battlefield, the Ghost Fleet moved with a terrifying grace. Their formation was perfect, their advance unstoppable. Every time they fired, a triumvirate warship disappeared without a trace. It wasn't just defeat, it was obliteration. Panic spread through the triumvirate fleet. Ships broke formation, captains desperately trying to flee the carnage. But the Ghost Fleet was faster, cutting off escape routes with ruthless precision. On Earth's warship, Admiral Kara watched the enemy's chaos unfold. A cold smile played on her lips. "They're scattering like insects," she noted. Her tactical officer nodded. "Their morale is shattered, Admiral. They weren't ready for this." Kara's eyes gleamed. "Good. They thought we were helpless. They mocked us. Now, they faced the truth." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to all triumvirate ships." Moments later, her image appeared on every enemy screen. Vorkin's eyes narrowed as the human admiral's cold gaze locked onto his. "This is Admiral Kara of Earth's Ghost Fleet," she announced, her voice firm and commanding. "You invaded our space. You attacked our people, and you called us primitive." She leaned forward, her expression fierce. "Now you see the price of your arrogance." A cold chill ran through Vorkin's spine. He had never seen such determination in a human before. They were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be afraid. But this human, she was fearless. Kara's voice became even colder. "Surrender now, and you may live. Continue to fight, and you will be erased. There will be no mercy." The transmission ended, and silence filled Vorkin's command room. He felt the eyes of his officers on him, their faces pale with fear. What do we do, sir?" one of them asked. Vorkin looked at the battlefield, at his fleet crumbling under the human onslaught. He had no choice. "Send the order," he whispered. "All forces, retreat." But even as the order went out, the Ghost Fleet showed no signs of slowing. They moved with deadly precision, cutting down retreating ships without hesitation. The triumvirate was being hunted. On his screen, Vorkin watched as Dreadnought after Dreadnought vanished, their existence erased by the humans' terrifying weapons. This wasn't just a battle. It was a massacre. He could feel his empire crumbling before his eyes. Everything they had built, everything they had believed, shattered by a species they had underestimated. They were never primitive, Vorkin realized, his voice hollow. They were just waiting for the right moment. A moment that had now arrived. The triumvirate fleet was in full retreat, but escape was impossible. The Ghost Fleet moved like shadows, blocking every path, destroying every ship that tried to flee. It was as if they knew the enemy's moves before they even made them. On the bridge of his flagship, Vorkin's heart raced with panic. His fleet was being torn apart. Every escape route closed before his eyes. Every desperate strategy was countered with cold, merciless precision. "How are they doing this?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "No fleet is this coordinated." His tactical officer's face was pale. "Sir, it's as if they're reading our minds." Vorkin's eyes widened. "Impossible. They can't." But then he remembered the stories. Rumors of human technology that could predict movements, that could see through strategies like a window into the mind. "Could it be?" he whispered. "Are they really that advanced?" Meanwhile, aboard her flagship, Admiral Kara watched the chaos on her tactical display. The triumvirate fleet was crumbling, their formation shattered. Panic was spreading like wildfire. "They have no discipline," she noted coldly. "No courage, only arrogance." Her communications officer smiled. "They thought they were invincible." Kara's eyes narrowed. They thought wrong. She turned to her weapons officer. "Target their command ships. Cut off their leadership. Make them feel helpless." Moments later, Earth's dreadnoughts fired with terrifying power. Beams of energy sliced through space, hitting triumvirate command ships with pinpoint accuracy. There was no explosion, no debris, just silence. The ships were erased, their atoms scattered. On Vorkin's screen, 3 command ships vanished without a trace. His heart skipped a beat. He had never seen anything like it. Weapons that didn't just destroy but erased existence itself. This is impossible, he muttered, his hands shaking. No weapon can do this. His science officer's voice was hollow. Sir, our sensors can't even detect the energy signature. It's like they're using technology beyond our understanding. Vorkin's face went pale. He had thought Earth was primitive. He had believed their scientists, their spies. But they were wrong. Horribly wrong. His fleet was being destroyed by ghosts, by shadows that shouldn't exist. Panic spread among the triumvirate ranks. Captains shouted desperate orders, but their voices were lost in the chaos. Ships collided as they tried to flee. Some even fired on each other in confusion. The ghost fleet moved without hesitation, exploiting every weakness, every mistake. It was a massacre. Kara watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. They thought they were superior, she said softly. But they relied on numbers, on brute force. They never understood the art of war. Her tactical officer grinned, and they never expected this technology. Kara's eyes gleamed. We kept it hidden for this moment. They never even imagined we could do this. On his flagship, Vorkin realized the truth. Earth had never been primitive. They had been patient. They had hidden their power, their technology, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now, the triumvirate was paying the price for its arrogance. He turned to his communications officer, his voice weak. Send out a distress signal to all Allied fleets. Tell them we need help. Tell them humanity is not what we thought. The officer hesitated. Sir, even if they come, will it be enough? Vorkin looked at the ghost fleet, moving like shadows, erasing his ships with ease. He felt the cold grip of fear in his chest. I don't know, he admitted, his voice trembling. I don't know if anything can stop them now. But deep down, he knew the truth. The tide had turned, and Earth was no longer the prey. They were the hunters. The battlefield was chaos. Triumvirate ships scattered, fleeing in all directions. The once mighty fleet was reduced to terrified survivors, desperately trying to escape the shadows that hunted them. The ghost fleet moved like predators, silent and deadly. Their dreadnoughts seemed to appear out of nowhere, their weapons erasing ships without warning. There was no mercy, no hesitation. Only cold, calculated destruction. On his flagship, Vorkin watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. He had never seen such efficiency, such ruthlessness. Every time he ordered a retreat, the ghost fleet blocked the path. Every time he tried to regroup, they attacked from the shadows. Sir, we're surrounded, his tactical officer shouted, panic in his eyes. There's no escape. Vorkin slammed his fist on his chair. How? How are they everywhere? His science officer's face was pale. It's their technology. They're using some kind of cloaking system. Our sensors can't detect them until it's too late. Vorkin's heart sank. How could they fight an enemy they couldn't see? A warning alarm blared. Another section of his fleet vanished from the tactical display. Dozens of ships, gone without a trace. He watched in horror as the ghost fleet moved in perfect coordination, cutting through his forces like a blade through water. It was as if they were dancing, anticipating every move, every counterattack. They're toying with us, he realized, his voice hollow. They could have destroyed us by now, but they're dragging this out. His communications officer's hands shook. Sir, it's psychological warfare. They're breaking our spirit before the kill. Vorkin's blood ran cold. Earth was not just fighting to win. They were sending a message, a warning to the entire galaxy. Meanwhile, aboard her flagship, Admiral Kara watched the battle with icy focus. They're crumbling, she observed, her voice calm. No discipline, no strategy, just panic. Her tactical officer nodded. They don't know how to fight what they can't see. Kara's eyes gleamed. Then will be the shadows that haunt them, the nightmares they'll never forget. She turned to her communications officer. Broadcast to all ships. Begin Phase 2. A chorus of acknowledgments followed. Moments later, the Ghost Fleet executed a coordinated maneuver. They surrounded the triumvirate remnants, forming an inescapable net. On Vorkin's flagship, the alarms grew louder. Red lights flashed as his tactical display showed the horror of the encirclement. They were trapped. "No," he whispered, his body frozen with fear. "This can't be happening." His tactical officer's face was ashen. "They've boxed us in, sir. There's no way out." Vorkin's mind raced. He had to find a way to escape, to survive. But every option was cut off. Every strategy was countered. It was as if the Ghost Fleet was always one step ahead. Then the transmissions began. Cold, emotionless voices echoed through the triumvirate channels. "You thought Earth was weak. You were wrong. You thought yourselves invincible. Now you run like prey. There is no escape. There is no mercy." Vorkin's heart pounded. It was psychological warfare, just as his officer had said. The voices were everywhere, echoing in his mind, breaking his courage. The Ghost Fleet's dreadnoughts moved closer, their silhouettes dark and menacing. They were like shadows come to life, relentless and unstoppable. One by one, the triumvirate ships fell. Some tried to fight back, but were erased in an instant. Others attempted to surrender, but the Ghost Fleet showed no mercy. There were no negotiations, no prisoners. Vorkin watched helplessly as his fleet was annihilated, his empire's pride shattered before his eyes. "They're making an example of us," he realized, his body trembling. To show the galaxy what happens when you challenge Earth. His communications officer looked at him with desperation. "Sir, what do we do?" Vorkin's shoulders slumped. He was defeated. There was nothing left. "Send a message to all allied fleets," he said, his voice broken. "Tell them to stay away from Earth. Tell them humanity is not to be provoked." The officer hesitated. "But sir, what about us?" Vorkin looked at the Ghost Fleet, closing in like a pack of wolves. There was no mercy in those shadows, no hope. His voice was hollow. "We're already dead." The transmission was sent, a warning to the galaxy. But for Vorkin and his fleet, there was no escape. The Ghost Fleet struck without hesitation, their dreadnoughts firing beams that erased everything in their path. Silence followed, an eerie, chilling silence. Admiral Kara watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered. "The hunt is over. The enemy is broken." Her communications officer nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Mission accomplished." Kara looked at the empty void where once a powerful fleet had stood. Now, nothing remained but shadows and echoes. "They thought they could conquer us," she said softly. "They thought we were helpless." A cold smile crossed her lips. They were wrong. News of the battle spread like wildfire. Every corner of the galaxy echoed with whispers of Earth's vengeance. Empires trembled, and rulers shivered as they learned of the Ghost Fleet's wrath. On his command bridge, Supreme Chancellor Talrock of the Varkan Dominion watched the footage in stunned silence. His eyes widened as he saw the Triumvirate's mighty armada being obliterated without mercy. Ships vanished in flashes of light, entire fleets reduced to dust. How is this possible?" he stammered, his voice shaken. The Triumvirate was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. His advisor's face was pale. They underestimated Earth, Chancellor. They thought humans were primitive, harmless. Talrock's claws trembled as he gripped his throne. "And now they're nothing but ashes." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the screen showing Earth's dreadnoughts. Their black hulls reflected no light, moving like shadows in the void. Weapons fired without warning, erasing ships with terrifying precision. "What kind of monsters are they?" Talrock whispered, fear clawing at his heart. Meanwhile, on a distant planet, the rulers of the Shedar Alliance watched in horror. Their Grand Council chamber was silent, the air heavy with dread. One of the counselors spoke, his voice shaking. The humans, they didn't just defeat the triumvirate. They hunted them, like prey. Another counselor shivered. No honor, no mercy, only vengeance. They made an example of them. The Grand Leader murmured, his scales pale with fear. To show us, to show everyone, what happens when you challenge Earth. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, chaos erupted. Representatives from dozens of species argued, their voices panicked. Fear was palpable, echoing in every corner of the chamber. We must negotiate with Earth, one diplomat shouted, his tentacles trembling. Offer them peace before they turn their wrath on us. Peace, another retorted, his eyes wide with terror. Did you not see? They don't negotiate. They destroy. The assembly fell silent as the footage replayed again. The Ghost Fleet's dreadnoughts surrounded the last triumvirate flagship. No mercy was shown. No escape was given. The ship vanished in a flash of light, leaving only empty space behind. They're monsters, someone whispered, their voice choked with fear. No, said a deep, trembling voice. It was Elder Morak, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy. His ancient eyes were haunted. They're not monsters. They're hunters. And we are their prey. The chamber grew cold as his words sank in. The galaxy was no longer the same. The rules had changed. The balance of power had shifted. Far away on Earth, Admiral Kara stood in the war room, facing the leaders of humanity. The president's face was solemn as he spoke. You sent a message to the galaxy, a message they will never forget. Kara's expression was cold. They thought we were weak. They thought they could enslave us, destroy us. We showed them that humanity is not to be underestimated. The president nodded. You did more than that. You made them fear us. Kara's eyes were steely. Good. Let them fear us. Let them remember what happens when they threaten Earth. She turned to the holographic display of the galaxy, now marked with countless red zones. They'll think twice before they attack us again. The defense minister's voice was cautious. But Admiral, fear can be a dangerous weapon. It could unite them against us. Kara's lips curled into a cold smile. Then we'll be ready. Let them come. We have more than enough firepower to face them all. She looked at the hologram, her eyes fierce. The galaxy wanted to play conqueror. They wanted to make us their slaves. Now, they'll learn the price of underestimating humanity. The president's gaze was firm. You've changed the galaxy, Admiral. They will never see us the same way again. Kara's voice was cold as steel. Good. Let them remember. Let them tremble. Because from now on, Earth fights back. The war was over, but the legend had just begun. The Ghost Fleet became a myth, a story whispered across the stars. And with every telling, the fear grew. Humanity was no longer the prey. They were the hunters, and the galaxy would never forget. The aftermath of the battle rippled through the cosmos. No corner of the galaxy was untouched by the fear Earth's Ghost Fleet had inspired. Empires that once laughed at humanity now watched the stars with dread, fearing the return of those shadowy dreadnoughts. On the shattered remains of the triumvirate's capital world, scavengers moved cautiously through the ruins. They whispered to each other, terrified that even the ashes might somehow summon the wrath of Earth. Statues of once mighty rulers lay in pieces, their faces cracked and broken. The triumvirate was no more. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, silence hung heavy. Representatives from every known species sat frozen, their faces pale with fear. The footage of the Ghost Fleet's attack had played over and over again, burning itself into their minds. Finally, Elder Morak broke the silence. His voice was shaky, his ancient eyes filled with sorrow. We brought this upon ourselves. Our arrogance, our hatred. We thought Earth was weak. We thought humanity was primitive. He looked at the frightened faces around him. We were wrong. A young diplomat spoke up, his voice trembling. What? What do we do now? How do we survive against such power? Elder Morak sighed. We do the only thing we can. We learn from our mistakes. He stood, leaning on his cane. We reach out to Earth, not with weapons, but with open hands. There was a murmur of disagreement, but fear silenced them. They all remembered the Dreadnoughts, the unstoppable force that had torn apart fleets like paper. In the shadows, Supreme Chancellor Talruk listened quietly. His heart was heavy with shame. He had once called humans barbarians, laughed at their primitive technology. Now his empire stood vulnerable, knowing that Earth could wipe them out in a heartbeat. He spoke, his voice low. They showed no mercy to the triumvirate, but they did not strike at us. Not yet. That is a mercy in itself. He looked at the council, his eyes burning with determination. We must make peace before they change their minds. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kara stood before the Ghost Fleet's pilots. The war room was silent as she addressed them. You have changed history. You showed the galaxy that humanity is not weak, not prey, but a force to be reckoned with. The pilots stood tall, their faces grim but proud. They knew what they had done. They knew they had struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. Kara's voice softened, but fear alone won't keep us safe. The galaxy now sees us as a threat. They will plot against us, try to destroy us before we grow even stronger. Her gaze hardened. We must be ready. We must be vigilant. The president stepped forward, his face solemn. The Ghost Fleet saved us, but it also made us a target. We must defend Earth, and we must do it together. Kara's eyes were fierce. We will defend Earth. We will face any enemy, any threat, and we will win. The pilots saluted, their voices united. For Earth. The galaxy trembled, knowing that Earth was ready for war. But as the days passed, a strange thing happened. Messages began arriving from distant worlds, pleas for peace, offers of alliance. Elder Morek himself sent a message, his words humble. We misjudged you. We feared you because we did not understand you. Let us learn. Let us grow together. Supreme Chancellor Talruk sent envoys, begging for a chance to negotiate. We do not wish to be your enemies. We do not wish to share the triumvirate's fate. Admiral Kara stood before the holographic display, watching the messages come in. She looked at the president, her expression thoughtful. They're scared. They want peace. For now. The president nodded. Then we give them peace. But we stay strong. We stay ready. Kara's eyes were cold. If they ever forget this fear, if they ever dare to threaten Earth again, the Ghost Fleet will remind them. She looked at the map of the galaxy, now marked with territories begging for alliance. They once laughed at us. Now they bow before us. The president's voice was firm. Let them bow. Let them remember who we are. Kara's lips curled into a fierce smile. They'll remember. They'll never forget. And so, Earth became more than just a world. It became a legend, a name spoken with fear and respect. The Ghost Fleet became a myth, a story that grew with every telling. And the galaxy would never be the same.